Welcome back to part two, people. I actually came across this. I was only going to do the one video, and then I came across Beth Holloway, which is Natalie Holloway's mother, reacts to killer's confession. This woman is absolutely a strong tower, and she's also basically put in stuff out there for youngsters to keep safe when they go abroad, which I think it was absolutely brilliant. This is a not miss, people. It really is very interesting. Let's get straight into this.
Above all else, you're a mom that found yourself caught up in this whirlwind that no one would have ever expected. And here we are. You said in your victim impact statement that you feel a grief that lives deep inside of your soul and extends there. And then I saw you today in front of the courtroom, and I gotta be honest, I don't know what a person looks like who has just had the weight of the world lifted off of their chest, but as close as that can be is sort of what you represented today. After having waited so long for answers, how would you characterize the emotions you experienced?
I don't know if you can really take your emotion and put it into words. It's a lot of so many different feelings that are going on, and your mind is racing, and you think about, you begin to go back to the beginning. I think that was the first thing I had. I went back to day one. I went back to May 31st, 2005 at 4 a.m. I was face to face with my daughter's killer that night at the Holiday Inn, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that I was face to face with her killer. I thought I was face to face with a suspect that was involved in her disappearance. So for the first thing that happens is I think everything just shifts back. It just throws you, kind of slams you back in time. And that was kind of like, those are the first steps that start unfolding in your mind. And to think about, then you fast forward it back. So it's this, flipping back and forth in time of 18 years. What you thought then, what you know now, and you apply it back then, it's just shocking. It's shocking that we had it then, but we just couldn't get him to say it. I admit it.
Why do you think now? Why did he acknowledge this after 18 years?
Well, he'd never been in federal custody. He'd never been picked up by the U.S. Marshals and team of FBI from Miami and Birmingham. He'd never been arraigned in a Birmingham court at Hugo Federal Black Courthouse. So, if there were an incentive, this was every incentive for him to finally tell the truth, because look, it was real. For the first time we had him. For the first time he was in our custody. He was the first time he was under our federal agents. And we had been begging for that since '05. We had all the federal agents there in '05, but Aruba wouldn't have it. They would not have the FBI agent that was standing there ready, willing to do anything and everything. They would not allow them.
And then you personally had to implore through George, the government of Peru, to have him extradited here.
Yes. So George Seymour with Patriot Strategies and his business associate Mark, they were able to, we felt like Greta and I were carrying this ball and we could push it down the field, but dang, we just couldn't get it over. We just couldn't get it at the end zone or over the line. And then, when George and Mark stepped in, it was like April of 2023, and then it was just like, I was like, where did these guys come from? So we just had to have George and Mark they are the ones who made it happen, to get it over the finish line. We couldn't do it. We were almost getting shut down because there was a lot of, unfortunately, there was a lot of civil unrest going on in Libya. There was a very tumultuous time with their government and things like that. So I really felt like it's not going to happen.
You said something to me, or you said something earlier today that really struck me. You said that this is better than closure.
It is.
Why is this better than closure?
Well, for me, the never-ending nightmare is over, and I don't. The word closure, I think it's different to all victims. I think they interpret it as different. But for me, closure is not what I got. I got, it's over. It's solved. Natalie's case is solved. Joran Vandersloot is not her. Is not the suspect in Natalie's disappearance. Joran Vandersloot is the murderer. Of Natalie. And that meant that my nightmare is over. And all I've done for 18 years is gone down millions and millions of rabbit holes there were so many swirling theories, and I think in hindsight, maybe there were so many swirling theories is because we couldn't get the answer. We couldn't get anything. We couldn't get Iran.
You've been living with the unknown for 18 years.
Yeah.
Every night that you go to sleep, every day that you wake up, you still did not have finality in knowing what happened to your daughter.
Every morning when I kiss her senior portrait goodbye in my bedroom and tap her on the cheek, we've never been able to put it to rest and put all of those swirling theories and crazy things to rest. But I was, it's to no fault of anyone. I mean, I was in it too because we couldn't get the answer.
When you and Dave,
I think it's horrible losing someone and you don't know where they are. There's so many cases in the UK at the moment of people going missing as well, and they're never found, or there's documentaries out there trying to find out basically where they are and whether they're still alive, and it must be terrible for the family not knowing. It really is. Obviously, we've got a case of basically a young man who went missing in Bristol, and basically his body have never been found, and like I said, he could be anywhere, and his parents are basically still looking for him as well, which is such a shame.
Dave and Matt were in that room, and he was offering his proffer, and we didn't know. I mean, the general public didn't know. Was he going to plead guilty to extortion, to wire fraud charges? What were we going to learn? And then all of a sudden, a confession comes out. What went through your mind in that moment?
Well, I was fortunate that I was able to be a part of this process. And I mean, the team here, the team in the FBI in Miami, the FBI in Birmingham, the U.S. Attorney's Office really did an amazing job of letting me understand what was happening real time versus relaying it secondhand. So, it is shocking to hear, of course, but I had to do it. I felt like it was better for me to hear it real time and just brace myself and take the hit because I had to know.
Were you stunned by the depravity, both of what he did to your daughter, but also the behavior that you mentioned after the fact, right after he'd committed murder?
Exactly. And it was funny because that was what threw me off, and I think it threw a lot of us off in '05 because I'm like, well, okay, how could he have murdered her? And then he goes home and checks the soccer scores, gets on a porn site, and gets up, takes a shower, and goes to school. Well, there you go. There's that other 18 years fast forwarded. Now I know why.
Because he's pathologically...
Well, he's just, all he really has is those functions of existence of anger, killer, sex, and food.
Yeah, the guy's really, really sick. Really, really, really sick. It's sad that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and this guy, I think, was very, very calculated.
I mean, look, he ate his breakfast over Stephanie Flores' bludgeon body, and then with Natalie, of course. When he was denied sexual gratification with her, what does he do? I had to tell him. He goes home, gets on porn to get off. I mean, that's a killer. That is a person with no conscience, no remorse, no guilt. So there were those little things, those elements. When I go back to '05 and think of 18, what he said now, yeah, that's him, and that's just his mode of existence.
This is a reflection of who he is as an individual, which is to say something that none of us could comprehend in terms of that behavior. And, I'm wondering, as you're learning all of this, you then know I'm going to be confronting this person. And you offered this incredibly brave victim impact statement today.
Wow.
One of the things that you said to him was, what if your daughter were Natalie? What if you were me? Did you plan that, or was it organic?
It was just organic. And I would kind of, since I was able to hear a lot of things real time, I kind of was beginning to understand what maybe some of his pressure points, and his daughter seemed to be one, which I know a killer typically doesn't have any emotional attachment or anything, but for some reason, even wild animals protect their young. And so, or, sometimes, but I felt like if he only heard this much of what I said, just a scintilla, that it would have been something when I mentioned the name that now I'm going to say we have something in common. a daughter, because that he's very. You start talking about his daughter, that really affects him.
You knew that was a pressure point.
I knew it was a pressure point, but I didn't know how I was going to say it. But I felt like I wanted to leave her name out, and I understand that because she doesn't deserve to have the father that she does.
I watched you walk up to the stand, and the first thing that you did as you got up was you looked at him. Whatever sort of fears or demons or just the reality of knowing what he had done and said, you still looked at him, went to the stand, started your statement, and then looked at him again and said, you look like hell, and I'm not sure you're going to make it. Did that just all materialize in the moment also?
Yeah, it did. I felt like, I guess I thought, victims impact statement, I thought I was going to be just addressing him personally, like standing like this, face to face with him. So that's why I had, referenced his name more. I didn't realize, and it was fine, I just didn't realize that my back was going to be to him. But I felt like since my impact statement was for and to him, I felt like I had to turn around because that's who the statement was for. And maybe he did
sort of look at him in the eyes to sort of know who this guy is. I know he was callous, I know he was a nasty person and stuff, but she just wanted to make sure that she got her points across to him about what he's done.
Didn't deserve to see, I think he deserved to see the parts where I felt like were a pressure point for him, his daughter, and
good point,
and his looks.
When he apologized to you, did you take that as sincere?
No, because I know his levels of existence, and that is
evil.
Not it. He doesn't
Man.
have that in his existence, and I think, just to say the words, it's fine. It didn't mean anything. They don't mean anything.
Were you or Dave or Matt in their impact statements giving, I'm guessing, many, many hours to what you included in there? How difficult was it to form the words to actually say to him in person once you'd known he confessed to killing your daughter?
Oh, it wasn't as hard as what you think, and the reason why is because the not knowing is more torturous than the knowing. And I know parents or families who are victims of, their loved ones are victims in crimes like this. I think that is probably somewhat, I don't know, there's not a normal, but I feel like that is probably, could be more common than not. And I think the not knowing is worse. The knowing is shocking, you brace yourself, you take the hit, but the not knowing is the never-ending nightmare, and that's worse.
I agree. I totally agree with it. It's like, obviously, the Jay Slater case, Debbie Warren really frantically, looking for Jay and wanting answers. And it was such a dark case, and it still is now, because it's not really fully resolved in, what actually happened. But at least, basically, Natalie's mum, Beth, has got basically a confession. It's taken like 18 years plus, but she's got something, and she's still got a son who reminds her, who reminds her of her daughter as well through him, which is absolutely brilliant.
And that's the boat that you were in.
Yeah.
For almost 20 years of your life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now you do know. And the knowing is horrific in terms of the details of what he did.
It is. It is. It is. And it's shocking to us to think that somebody is capable of doing that so nonchalantly. It's almost as if he brushed his teeth and got dressed and drove his car. But remember, I was also able to hear him, say these things. And it's as if it's normal to him. It's if it's routine to him.
It felt perfunctory, you think?
Yeah,
as he described it.
Yeah, it's just that's what happened. There was nothing. There's no difference in the tone, or it's just who he is, and I think that is probably typical of a lot of killers. I don't think they have.
Yeah, he's just a cold-blooded killer. and he doesn't take responsible for his actions, which makes him more dangerous as a person.
Obviously, they wouldn't be killers if they had any type of real sorrow or suffering.
I want to ask you about Natalie in a second, and just the freedom you have now to remember her in a way where at least you don't have questions still hanging over your head. To see you smiling, just the idea of that.
Yeah.
But also, just the judge's comments in court struck me too. I mean, I was thinking about what were the things that really stood out. And when she described his behavior as heinous, in her words, for exploiting and choosing someone who was just trying to find information about her daughter who had disappeared, that he had chosen you, but then heinous to the extreme to then knowingly provide that person with false information. What was your reaction to the judge's words and characterization?
Yeah, I knew it was horrific and shocking, but it was nice for the judge to say it, because just think, I paid my daughter's killer, so I paid killer fees to the person that bludgeoned my daughter to death. I mean, who does that? And who? It's shocking, but it really made me feel stronger with her saying that, because I'm thinking, I get caught up in he's a double murderer, but I was glad that she brought it out that, not only, I was glad she recognized it as a heinous, horrific act. I was really grateful.
Recognition and empathy, understanding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was very strong about it. And I was shocked. I didn't know that was coming, but I was glad to hear it.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone else was too. Do you think 20 years is enough time? The judge mentioned she didn't want to jeopardize the murder confession by rejecting this deal.
I don't think any victim's family is going to think ever an amount of time is enough. But there's the death penalty. I think there's never enough. So here's what I have to take comfort in, is what I needed. And I needed the answers as to what happened to Natalie. And I also remind myself that I'm not the one in 2005 that let him go murder, that let him get, off scot-free of murdering Natalie. They could have found this out.
100%. They didn't work hard enough, to be honest with you, to convict this guy, and he went on to kill again. And you don't know who else he's killed, or not even mention it. At the end of the day, this guy should be behind bars for life.
In 2010, I worked like hell in 2005 trying to keep him in prison or jail. Aruba wouldn't do it. They let him go. I worked equally as hard in 2010 trying to do it, because I knew he was bad. And so I can't take that burden on. That's Aruba's problem. Aruba's the one that has the double murder, not me.
Your mom instinct told you he was definitely involved.
I couldn't hear or see why or how, but now I do hear and see why and how.
How does this allow you to just love and appreciate your daughter and who she was and her dreams even more?
Well, I think now it becomes easier for me to appreciate her life through my son's life and through his children's lives. And I hadn't really been as, I've been a little distracted. So I feel like now I can kind of like, now I can focus on that.
Invest
Yeah.
as a grandparent and a parent in the way that you want.
Instead of I'm not illegal. I'm not supposed to be investigating something for the rest of my life.
That's the way you felt for basically a decade and a half.
Yeah.
How did you do this? How did you go and talk to people and warn parents and try to create awareness while dealing with the pain and the anguish that you know that we're experiencing every day?
Well, I'm an educator. So I've been an educator for over 30 years. And I think for me, it's about, sharing life lessons and the hard lessons that we learned. Because I
think that's brilliant, in sharing life lessons and giving knowledge to the younger ones, like I said, who was going on holiday. We've got the Jay Slater case, which is still ongoing. And I know everyone's back in the UK, or most of them are back in the UK, but that case is still going on, of what happened to Jay in Tenerife. And it's something that we want to see justice for. But you've got to basically respect. A lot of respect goes to Beth Holloway for fighting for justice for her daughter and for not giving up.
Really, in the tragedy, I was really fortunate to be able to have those opportunities to go and to speak to other young adults, So anyway, that was kind of one of the silver linings, isn't it?
It was. And I want to say, too, I spoke with John Q earlier this week, and he said that this traumatized a generation of families and kids worried about sending their daughters to vacations with their high school classmates because of what happened.
Yeah.
Does any of what happened in the last 24 hours for you embolden this as a deterrent and for people to know there will be justice at the end of the day?
I hope it will give families that are searching for either their loved one's perpetrator. Maybe they're just searching for the remains of their loved one or what happened to them. But I hope that in some way it will give them hope and encouragement to persevere and to just never give up and to just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Because, look, I didn't know where I was going. 18 years, I never had a destination. You just keep going and you hope you'll get there, but you don't really get caught up in that. You just keep going on the destination to see where you're finally going to arrive.
That was it, people. I'm going to leave it there. There's only about 4 or 5 minutes left. Natalie Holloway's mother reacts to killer's confession and her love for her daughter, the determination and for not giving up. And I've obviously got a convicted, not for Natalie's murder, but a convicted killer behind bars, and may eventually end up doing extra time for killing Natalie because he's actually admitted that as well. Very, very bizarre case that had gone on for so long, but it was brilliant for Natalie's mum to actually come out, Beth, and tell us what she thought of her daughter's killer's confession. Thank you. Take care, people.